Now you're listening to Living with Bassel Podcast.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Bassel speaking from Living with Bassel Podcast, and today's episode will be about how a country's GDP isn't exactly an accurate indication about its quality of life. Whenever a certain person is trying to move to another country, they usually look out for multiple indications and attributes of this country they want to go to, and one of those aspects is a GDP. Now, I'll be talking about countries with a relatively high GDP, but unfortunately they struggle to maintain a proper quality of life. The first country I'll be talking about is the United States, which is, to be honest with you, one of my favorite nations ever. As a country with the highest GDP in the world, it's absolutely difficult to have a proper life there because of the constant increase in the property price, sales tax, and the expensive health insurance there. Also, the cost of education there is absolutely astronomical. You're looking for to pay at least $50 to $60K per year. That's of course not in a high-end or top-notch university, which makes it really hard to settle there, especially if you have children. And the labor market there is not exactly perfect. I know a lot of people who had moved there and stayed nearly a year without a job, regardless how qualified, well-trained, and educated they were for the vacancy. The second country I'll be talking about is China, which is considered a country with the biggest economy in the world. One of the biggest issues in China for foreigners is finding a job, especially within your major, so you'll be stuck with an English teaching vacancy just to get by. It also has a problem with the rent prices, so you'll be paying a lot of money for a shitty place. Another problem is that all social media websites there are blocked, so if you're thinking about getting in touch with your family, friends, and your loved ones, you'll be stuck with a shitty application called WeChat, which is like WhatsApp with way less features. The third country on my list is India, which is a very well-known country for education and intelligence, but living there is a totally different story. Unfortunately, India lacks any hygienic measures, especially in public places like restaurants. I know a lot of people who had and still living there who got food poisoned multiple times because of that. In terms of employment, the jobs are there, but unfortunately the salary is extremely low, which is averages around $300. With this salary, you won't be able to afford to rent your own house or your flat. Therefore, you'll be forced to share a house or a flat with others, or you will rent your own flat or house in the slums, which is not recommended at all. The fourth and the last country I'll be talking about is Brazil. It has the ninth highest GDP in the world, and it's considered one of the most economical powers in Latin America. But living here is a totally different story. Living expenses are extremely higher than their neighbors, from food to electronics. One of the biggest gripes about living here is that your salary won't get you anywhere unless you work for a really big company that pays you well. Other than that, you'll be living in a shitty place with a shitty environment, and you won't be able to get a proper education or a proper health insurance. This is Bassel from Living with Bassel Podcast. See you in the next one. Peace.